Tucker Carlson destroys a stupid psychologist on live TV. He wasn't listened to and he was right. What are we talking about? Let's find out together.
Person, listen to this. These are questions that didn't exist like 18 months ago. Homo sapiens have been around 300,000 years, and for the most part, it was kind of obvious who the boys and girls were. But we've decided in a very short period of time that none of that is real, and we're changing it, because why?
Well, to be honest with you, we believe that people who are considered intersex, people who are born with both sets of genitalia, have existed throughout human history.
For sure.
So the federal government just released a study in 2016 that 1.4 million people now identify themselves as transgendered, and Canada isn't the only place that's doing this. Legislation was just introduced in Washington, D.C. and in New York over the past couple of months to also have parents have the right to, on a child's birth certificate, not just say that the child is male or female, but also X or unidentified.
A child's sex should be assigned at a later age when he grows up and decides for himself whether he is a boy or a girl. The article was a hit, albeit a specific one. Among the 6,000 comments, the vast majority boiled down to, "You're crazy over there." But there are not only understandable emotions, but also indications of the obvious medical idiocy of the idea. "I'm a pediatrician," wrote one commenter, for example. "The growth curves of female and male babies are very different from each other. Should I now just stop tracking whether a baby is growing and developing normally?"
This case is about the idea that you get to choose what your sex is, which is a denial of biology, and there's also, and I think as a psychotherapist you'd agree, a cost to a child. If you say to a little kid, you know, I don't know if you're male or female, you decide, I don't think you're going to get a good outcome a lot of the time at all. That's why people have never done that through human history. You know, the couple that is, or the person who's deciding to do this with their child up in Canada, the point, I spoke to them on the phone, the point that they are making is that this child is a spiritual being having a human experience, not a human being having a spiritual experience. So it's actually a very spiritual endeavor. And what it's saying is that let's just let the child be a child, and eventually the child will decide what it wants to be, how much it wants to identify as a boy or how much it wants to identify as a girl.
What the hell is this? Anyway, on the face of it, this is a case where gender idiocy smashed into common sense. Why shouldn't you put the biological sex of the child? Why are you depriving him of the biological gift that nature has given him? You probably haven't thought about what kind of HOAs can happen either. There's a huge problem with that.
But you can't actually decide, and I'm for choice, and there are a lot of biological realities that I'm sad about, that I would change about no, I'm sincere, that I would change about myself. And so I'm not attacking anybody, but don't you think that biological reality matters, and lying to kids and telling them, you know, actually you could be 6'7", or you could have blue eyes instead of brown, or whatever. I mean, those are lies, and it's never a good idea to lie to kids, is it?
I don't think it's a lie. I think it's actually giving children more information at a younger age than we traditionally have, right? So it's like, I'm going to give a comparison. It's like raising a child to not assume that they're heterosexual, right? The way I've raised my children is to say, like, I don't know what they're going to be, and I'm not just going to assume that they're gay or they're straight. I just give them lots of information, expose them to lots of people.
There's a difference here, because whereas, you know, we don't know a lot about the biology of homosexuality, we know a lot about the biology of sex, because we know that it begins on the chromosomal level. Like, there's a science piece to this that's being ignored by people who I thought believed in science. So that's why I'm a little bit confused.
I don't think it's being ignored. I think what we're seeing, though, in the federal study and what's come out in terms of the Census Bureau is that if 1.4 million people don't identify with the gender marker that they were given at birth, we have to take note of that and say what's going on, that there's a fluidity about gender, and it's not necessarily rooted in biology.
Does she realize she's talking about different things? Making adjustments in the process or completely reprogramming are very different things. A child has the right to be informed that there are people who are not who they really are, and then it's up to them to decide who they are. That's the point. Yes, and from birth we were meant to grow up and continue the species, but at some point everything took a sharp turn in the wrong direction.
Why does that not extend to race?
Tell me what you mean by that. You're going to have to explain that one to me.
If I can say I'm a woman, why can't I say I'm a Chinese woman and be taken every bit as seriously? And I'm not mocking you. I'm making a sincere point, and it's a sincere question. What's the difference?
You know, I think it's a great question. I mean, I think as we progress as a society, some of these labels that we're putting on things, and I can't necessarily go to the race question, although one of the things that I've loved about your program as of late is that you're really into this idea of having a more inclusive society and being less separatist in terms of race, that we should be more inclusive. And I think that that's what we're saying. We're creating a space at the table for people to be, to have optionality in terms of how they want to identify themselves. Okay.
Well, as long as we're still science-based, then, you know, as a child of the Enlightenment,
it's not taking science off the table. It's just saying, can we look at it from another perspective?
Okay. Nell, thanks for coming on tonight.
Thanks, Tucker, so much for having me. I appreciate it.
That's the whole problem with this trend. We can't use it the way we do now. Everyone can index themselves as they want, and this is a huge problem. It seems to me that we need to rethink this and adopt a more rational framework so that the world doesn't go crazy. What do you think about that? Write your opinion in the comments and don't forget to watch other shocking news on the channel.